I'm Brittany.
And I'm Heather.
Welcome to Okayest Moms, the podcast.
A place to be more than just mom.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Okayest Moms, the podcast. Brittany here.
And Heather.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. The dumbest holiday ever.
So dumb. Especially since my birthday's in 2 days. It's always been combined. It's a whole thing.
Hey, I get it. I feel similarly about Halloween because it just takes over your stupid birthday. Was every cake you ever had growing up like pink and red and hearts?
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, because that's like what's at the Safeway bakery. So that's what you get. Yeah. Mine was always, at least you get like pink and red and white. Like mine's black and orange.
I mean, orange is not really your color, but.
No, I know. It's just rude. I take hearts over and ghosts.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on this day of love, let's give a 10-task follow-up. So if you haven't already listened to episode 136, we have a partnership with 10task, and we spoke to Felicia all about the importance of household labor division and this idea of everyone doing an equal effort to help the household. And of course, that's all going to look different for everybody, depending on what the needs of your household are. So if you haven't already listened to that episode, I would start there.
Yeah. So go back and do that. And we'll be right back after this quick break with our thoughts about the experience.
If you're feeling the new year, new you vibe, and your goal is to get organized once and for all, then you need an essential calendar.
We've both been using an essential calendar for the past few years, and their unique design allows you to see 3 months at a glance. This makes planning so much easier and guarantees that you make time for all the things you want to do, not just things you have to do.
And new to the shop this year is the Year at a Glance calendar. If you like to see your whole year mapped out, this sleek, minimalist design is perfect for you.
You can get 10% off your order from the Essential Calendar by going to okayestmoms.com/essential. That's okayestmoms.com/essential.
We'd like to introduce podcast sponsor Dry Farm Wines. Dry Farm Wines is a wine club that sources natural wines from small family farms that grow organic grapes. Each wine is dry farmed, meaning no irrigation, low alcohol, below 12.5% ABV, sugar-free, lower in sulfites, free of toxic additives, and is keto, paleo friendly, and vegan.
Which is a fancy way of saying that you can enjoy the crisp, refreshing taste of a Sauvignon Blanc or the warm, fruit-forward taste of an Old Vine Zin without the icky feeling the next morning.
If you know what we mean. Dry Farm Wines offer memberships for reds, whites, or a mix of both that can be edited or canceled at any time.
To order Dry Farm Wines, go to dryfarmwines.com/okayestmoms to order. And if you sign up for a membership through our link, you'll get an extra bottle of wine for a penny with your first order. That's dryfarmwines.com/okayestmoms. Okay, we're back. So this episode is a part of a sponsored series. Part of our sponsorship was to do 3 coaching sessions with Felicia, who is one of the CEOs of 10task. And we just wrapped those up. So we're here to tell you all about it.
It's kind of ironic that we didn't plan to put this on Valentine's Day, but
it really does work.
Ironic. So I feel like I should preface this by saying that we both have partners that are willing to help, maybe not like always with a smile on their faces, but they're slightly more evolved and can recognize the inequities within our household and are mostly willing to do something about it. I think that they still feel the pull of patriarchy a little bit and are also learning to undo that themselves. But so for the most part, they're willing and able.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good
So I think that may have skewed our experience a little bit, because I think if you're coming to this with a partner who's, you know, isn't aware of what weaponized incompetence is, or that they're even doing that, or, like who thinks that what they're doing is equitable, or doesn't recognize your need for more help, or your how full your plate is, then I think your situation and experience would be slightly different.
So should we just dive into like our experience?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, the first, I don't know if this went, I assume this is like a formula. So our first session was really centered around like our family values and like getting those values in line and what our shared values actually are, which was like a great exercise for me personally, because of course we know like what we want to instill in our kids, but like putting words to it and getting on the same page as your partner, where it's like, oh, it's us wanting this to be the culture of our family. It was kind of a cool way to start and get on the same page from the get-go.
Yeah, and that's a conversation that I've tried to have in our relationship before, but it's really hard to participate in a conversation like that and facilitate it at the same time. And I think that's what made Felicia so crucial, is that we could have this conversation. Because when I've attempted before, AJ's like, I don't know what you mean. Values, like I don't get it. And so I'm trying to have to explain it and synthesize my own thoughts around it. And like you just can't do both. It's just hard. And so once there was somebody else who was able to take on the facilitator role, we were able to have that conversation very easily. And I think from there, that really is the bedrock of your relationship. If you can't identify and define those goals and explain how that plays out in your family, then, I think then that's a place that you would start, obviously. So,
and so like the intake form, basically she has this whole system and you go through and you personally say what you think your values are, and then you come together as a couple, and it's just a really cool opportunity to like nail it down and know why you're doing this and know why you're working toward a common goal.
Exactly. So then once you've identified that, then you work with Felicia in a determined number of sessions. We each had 3 sessions, and she kind of will help you identify the different areas that you need to focus on. But she does it in a way that you're coming up with them on your own. Like she's leading you to the answers, and she does such a great job of facilitating things because she remains incredibly neutral, and she does a really good job of making sure each party feels heard. And I think AJ initially was like, oh, it's a woman doing this, like of course she's going to side with you. And she didn't necessarily, I think she was able to better explain where I was coming from, because she doesn't have the emotion attached to it. When I'm trying to explain, like, well, 5:00 sucks around here because I'm trying to make dinner and the kids are screaming and my phone is buzzing and like, and like, he doesn't get that because he's not here. But Felicia has been there, done that, and can explain it and in a way that he can digest.
Yeah, for sure. I know that all of the coaches at 10 Task are wonderful, but we both had Felicia, so we are founding members of the Felicia fan club. So we're going to mention her name a lot, but I know all the other coaches are great too. So after that first session, did you guys have like goals that you had to work toward before the next session?
Yes. So I don't remember specifically what those goals were. But I think that's good that they weren't, because the things we were working on weren't huge things. Like our values aligned pretty closely. So we were already on the same page on a lot of things. And like I said earlier, this is a conversation we've been having ongoing for the last couple of years on our own. We both mostly read Fair Play, the book by Eve Rodsky, which talks about this idea of like equal division of labor. And so this is a conversation that we've been having and kind of struggling with on our own, because we were each just kind of like running into each other, trying to make the other person understand our viewpoint. And so the things we were working on were just smaller things, like, you know, like the tasks around the house that you ignore because, like, I've done enough today. I'm not doing that. I'm going to leave it here until he does it. You know, those kinds of things. And so I think that that's a good thing that I don't remember the exact things. But what was so important to me is that I didn't have to keep up with the progress reporting and management. That was Felicia's job, to check in with us and, okay, how's it going? Did this work? We talked about doing it this way. Did that work? It didn't work. Okay, let's try this now. Because that's really hard to do on your own and keep up with the minutia of everyday life, to now sit and recall a conversation you had 2 weeks ago and like check in about it. And I think that's what makes the coaching process worth it, is that somebody else is doing that note taking and management. Because when you're having a conversation with your spouse, you can probably come to an agreement on your own and like, okay, you're going to work on this, I'm going to work on this. But unless you're checking back on it and progress monitoring, it's not going to happen. And no one, I don't think you should expect you or your spouse to sit there like a secretary and take notes about things. And I mean, if that works for you, that's fine, but that's not how we operate. And we weren't, you know, sitting there, okay, we're going to meet about this specific topic in 2 weeks' time and report back to each other. Like, it just took the pressure off of us to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Having the neutral party was key and is the main takeaway from like why this is all worth it. So Tyler and I, both firstborns, are both very stubborn, and we can both be very reactive. And Felicia helped us identify, like, sometimes when we argue through text as opposed to in person, we resolve things a lot better. So we came up with this system that was like, we're using the notes app on our phone, and we have one note called feedback and one called applause. So basically on feedback, like when there's something that bothers me, or like instead of correcting him in the moment when it comes to the kids, which I am very guilty of,
Yes,
I'll put it in there and then he'll go and check it. And then it's been such a game changer for us, as I'm able to bite my tongue knowing I'm still going to get my point to him. And he's able to take that in when his brain is ready to receive it, as opposed to in the heat of the moment when then things just.
that's so hard, because I find that if I don't say something right then I'm not going to remember the specific example later on when we do have time to talk about it.
Which is why I pull out my phone and immediately type it in instead of saying something. And honestly, that is the best takeaway from this for us.
I love that.
And then the applause one is to put things in like so there's not just negative feedback, there's also some positive reinforcement.
I mean, but obviously there's more in the feedback.
Well, there's literally nothing in the applause. We had our last session the other day, and I was like, I swear that I'm saying these things in person because it's a lot easier to get positive reinforcement
right
out loud. So I swear.
Well, yeah, and that's something that's easy to do in the moment without distracting from what's happening. Yes. Yeah. I love that. So the last few years, I've kind of been trying to say the same things to AJ in as many different ways as I could. But for whatever reason, because it was coming from me, it wasn't being received. And I swear I did not like slip Felicia any information. Like whatever I gave her on the intake form was what she got. I think he kind of was a little weary of it because he's like, you must have like sent something to her or like paid her off to say this. But she quickly identified the same things that I was seeing and had been saying. And to have him hear it from her was, you know, of course it's easy to have somebody else like, oh, it's not coming from my wife, then okay, I believe it. And without going into too much detail, the overarching issue is that he just hasn't been taking care of himself and his mental well-being, physical well-being, because he is so busy with work. And that has always been the number one. I know he feels a lot of pressure to be the like head of the household and the primary paycheck, and to provide this lifestyle that we've determined for our family. And I think it always comes back to internalized misogyny and patriarchy, and like that's not how our relationship, our families run. But it is essentially because we've made these decisions that he's going to be the one that works and that I'm going to stay home with the kids. And there's been some changes and fluctuations to that over the years, but for all intents and purposes, like he carries the benefits for the family. Like our lifestyle is dependent on his paycheck, and he's had some grievances with work lately. And I kind of think, though, that this isn't a unique situation. And I think millennials are all collectively kind of getting to that midlife crisis-y-ish point. And most of us have been in careers now for, like a decade, and our kids are getting to a certain age and more parents are getting to a certain age. And it's all kind of making us see like, the future, and we're looking down the road a little bit farther. And because so much of our life to this point has been like, okay, graduate college, get a job, like we've had these certain like benchmarks, whether or not you agree with them, like those have kind of been set up for us. And now we're kind of at that stretch in life where like there isn't necessarily a benchmark, and we're all kind of thinking like, what do we want to do? Do we want to keep doing this for the next 15, 20 years or what? And so he's kind of been grappling with that a little bit. And I think he's felt this push and pull of like, I'm stuck to this job because I have to provide this for my family, but also I don't want this job. Like, what can I do? And so it kind of like hit at the perfect point because all of this has been happening. And he's been putting so much of himself into work that he hasn't been doing anything for himself. And in turn, like work isn't taking the brunt of that, like his family is. And those are all things I've been trying to say, but through his work with Felicia, our work with Felicia, he's been able to figure it out. And so I asked him before we were going to record this, I said, what was your big takeaway from working with 10 Task? And I said, like, what would you say to make it less scary for other husbands? And I expected some like fluffy bullshit, sarcastic answer. And he said, it helped me realize my worth to my family far outweighs the worth to my job. I was like, what? I mean, I've only been saying that for like how many years? So I think, it took somebody else validating what he was saying and validating and interpreting what I was saying to make it click.
Yeah, so much of what we consider arguments or like fights that we had were just like communication misses, and like knowing just how we interpret what our partner is saying, whether that's the way they're meaning it. It's just like it ends up feeling so small when you get to the root of it. And a lot of that is like things that I personally interpret from what he's saying. And that was like a big eye opener too.
Yeah, I have been accused of this many times, that it's not my message, it's my delivery. And so I think
that
I'm sorry, then I will just communicate via text only from now on, like a robot, and you can interpret
Honestly,
it however you want.
It works. Like that is truly what takes the tone out of it. So I'm like, okay, this is the primary mode of communication from now on. So yeah, he enjoyed the process. I definitely think, there were tense moments during a couple.
There were a lot of tears.
But that's the other benefit of having a third party is we weren't as attacky as maybe we would have been by ourselves.
Right.
Kind of helped us.
And AJ said that too, that she doesn't let you get into the weeds of it. Because I think when you are like, you can start with the best of intentions in a conversation and you can quickly bring other things into it.
Right.
And so she really helps you stay focused on the questions. And, she'll like a little shepherd, like tap you with her cane if you're like getting off track, and she will bring you back. And I think that helped a lot too, because I tend to communicate like if I'm having an issue, I will give very generic examples and speak like broadly with things.
Mhm.
And AJ needs a very explicit example. And
Other two.
I just can't communicate that way. I can't like I why can't you just understand it the way I'm saying it? And it's like I've tried every way to say this as I can, and like I don't know, you're still not getting it. And like that's like my like all of my training ever like in a professional environment is like as a teacher. Like that's literally my job to like explain things so that you can get it. And I'm like, how can I not make you understand what I am thinking? And so that's really where she came in handy because she could, I don't know, she's a witch or something. She made him understand.
She's a great
these
translator, and one of my favorite things she does when she like repeats back when she says, "What I'm hearing you say is," and then I'm like, "Yes, that's what I wanted to say, but that's not how it came out of my mouth."
things. Well, and then so each session ended with very specific things to work on and of how you could help your partner work on those things and come up with a very specific goal. And again, like these are things that I have tried, like how, like I've asked AJ before, like how can I help you do this one thing that you want to do? And he, didn't want, he's a very slippery fish. He's an Enneagram 9. And what I take that as is he doesn't want to be told what to do, but he also wants very explicit direction on what to do, which is like impossible. So it was helpful for him to have it broken down into very small chunks and very, very actionable steps. And then to have somebody checking back up on those things. And I think too, when it's a spouse checking in with another spouse and holding another spouse accountable, I think that's, depending on the personalities, can be a recipe for disaster because I think it's essential to have a third party doing the checking in.
Yeah, it really, really, it was so incredibly helpful. And speaking of Enneagrams, I mean, Enneagram 7, I did not want to the day before every appointment, I really wanted to cancel it because I knew it was going to be hard. I knew it was going to be work. I knew I didn't want to have the conflict, but I'm so glad that we followed through with it because it was just so helpful.
And I think this is a good answer to needing some help and guidance, but not necessarily needing counseling or therapy. Yeah. Because I think to me, the difference between coaching and therapy is our values don't align. We want very different things for our lives. And I think that's where therapy is helpful. Like either bringing those two together or deciding that they should not be together. Like I think, but for coaching, I think this is perfect for couples who are like not considering a divorce or a separation or something like that, who are like committed to the marriage and having trouble communicating because I think, I mean, AJ and I have been together for so long that we know all the buttons to push and we know all the things to say. And that's where the third party came in helpful. I think had we varied on the state of our relationship and where each of us were, I think therapy would have been a better option. But I think I feel like that sounds so harsh to say, like committed to your marriage. I mean, I know many people are in that position where they aren't sure. And I think that's fine. I think, throughout the course of any relationship, I think many people go there and that's very valid. So I think therapy has its place, but if you don't think you quite need that much work, I think something like coaching with 10 tasks is the perfect answer.
Yeah. Or if you're feeling like you are the default parent,
yes,
having to pick up all of the slack around the household and you want more of a partner, then 10 task coaching is definitely for you. The term default parent can be very triggering for the parent who's not the default.
Yes.
That is something Tyler had to work through. And Felicia helped him understand that just because one parent is the default parent, it doesn't mean that the other parent's any lesser. It just means that we need to even out this workload. Because yes, he goes to work all day and I'm home. I work from home. Even if I was a stay-at-home mom, my workday should still end when he gets home. And then it's a 50-50 split.
Yes. That has always been the biggest point for us too, is like, that's nice. You had a long day at work, but your ass is home now. And now you're dad. You're not whoever you are at work. So chop, chop.
Yeah. It's true. And that's a hard thing for men who grow up in a patriarchal society to wrap their head around.
Right. And I think especially even if they have the desire to be different than their fathers, it's still like, so any incremental difference is going to be a difference to them. You know, they're like, well, I'm already better than my dad was.
Sure.
So like, that's enough. But my expectation isn't marginally better. My expectation is much different. So,
yeah. And they can't, we can all do better. Like, that's the whole point of this. We know we can do better. We know we can be a better team. And that I think we're just that much stronger after having that third party.
Absolutely. Well, and I think we've talked a lot about like how it's shaped the husbands to be better for us. But also, I think it helped with my expectations a little bit more. And I think because it was like a neutral, safe space, I think AJ was able to be a little bit more honest with how he was feeling. And so that gave me a better perspective on him. So I've been able to loosen my expectations. And also, like, a big part of it too is, I mean, we really did this at the perfect time for us because we were on the verge of a very large change in our family, of me going back to work full time. And that's like, by necessity, my expectations of things have just had to change and loosen and lessen. And I know I've talked many times about how much I loathe the dishes. I feel like the dishes are always our thing.
They're in every outline.
And they really But like right now, as we're recording, there have been dishes sitting in their sink for 3 days. And partly I'm okay with that because I'm not home all day and staring at them. And so things have changed and my expectations have changed with it. And so things are better.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's identifying what's important, because there could be things that like you think should get done, but you really don't care, but you're mad at him for not doing it and he doesn't care. Like, that's something that can be let go of and not be an issue.
Right. Well, and the other thing that I think really helped too was that it showed that your expectations can change. Yeah. You know, my expectation 2 years ago about the dishes is not the same as my expectation now. And that was causing a lot of drama because he thought that like it needed to be done this way because that's what I said one time 5 years ago. And it's like
black and white thinking.
Yes. It's like very concrete, very black and white, very specific example all the time. And so I was like, what? And like, that was why I was getting so frustrated. It's like, I don't understand why you're being so grumpy about this. And because he thought like those were the expectations. Like I literally don't care about that as much as you think I do. Like at one point I did, but that is no longer the case.
That's why the check-ins are so great.
Exactly. Yes.
Things changed. I even told Felicia, I'm like, I'm going to meet with you quarterly because I feel like this would be a great check-in.
Absolutely.
Without any issues, and it would be helpful.
Yeah. I think it would definitely be a worthwhile investment in your relationship. And I think like everybody always says marriages are work and they're hard. But I think they don't need to be as hard as they are. And like that was a big light bulb moment for both of us that, you know, change is hard and like expectations changing is normal and natural, but it's hard to adjust to those new expectations. And AJ and I have been together so long that our communication styles have changed, especially since having kids. I mean, when I was in my early 20s, of course I was doing the thing that like, you know, a lot of women do where they say one thing, but they mean another thing. And I have tried to say to him so many times, like, I literally don't have the fucking energy for that right now. I swear to God, what I am saying is what I want. And I know that that's different than what I would have said 15 years ago, but this is truly it. I'm not bullshitting. There are no lines to read between. Like, I trained him too well, and now I'm having to like untrain him. And so, but I never had the context to say that before working with Felicia.
So obviously we loved our experience with 10 Task, and we think you should definitely give it a shot. You can go to 10task.com. They have a quiz you can take, and you can connect with a coach.
The app is available on all platforms, and it's just a great way to kind of share tasks that you have. And I think, especially if you're just like at the beginning stages of this with your partner, of talking about the invisible labor and all the things you're thinking of, I think the app is a great visual tool to show all of those things. And is I think having all in your, first of all, getting it out of your head is helpful. And then it's a visual way, because men are visual creatures. They can see all those things and like realize that, oh, that's how the new toothpaste gets in the drawer. The toothpaste fairy doesn't come and just put it there. So if you're at that stage where you're having to deconstruct a lot of things and like explicitly point things out, the app is a great place to start.
Thank you for listening. Please make sure that you're subscribed. Please rate and review. As always, thank you for listening.
If you like what you just heard, and we hope you do, you can find more of us online at www.okayestmoms.com. We're also on all social media platforms, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Okayest Moms Blog. Or if you want to, you can send us an email at hey@okayestmoms.com.
Hi, I'm Tammy Hackworth, and I'm a life and work coach, keynote speaker, author, and host of the 100% Guilt-Free Self-Care podcast. You know what you need to do to live your best life, and feeling guilty isn't helping you do it. You may believe self-care is selfish. It isn't. You may believe that you're broken. You aren't. From exercise to mindset to books that will change your life, Tammy's here to remind you that you matter, and self-care is the foundation to your dream life and having the time, energy, and bandwidth to create the world you want to live in. Join me over on the 100% Guilt-Free Self-Care podcast every Thursday for new episodes.